I'm learning like all these new things because why not, as new businesses that could help me in the future, be bigger than my current one.
You just can't walk past an opportunity, can you?
Never can.
He's young, he's quick, and you better watch out.
This is Jim Bratton Podcast, Business Edition. In-depth conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners. Now, here's Jim.
So today, we're going to keep it in the family this time. I'm talking to Grayson Morris. Grayson, thank you.
Always glad to be here.
And this is the Jim Bratton Podcast. Now, Grayson has a business that I find just intriguing. And after listening to Bloomberg on the way over to San Antonio today, evidently this business is up like 30% in the past month or so.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, the youth clothing world is one of those businesses that just is booming. I would say with the younger generation, but also it's slowly migrating to like older generations too, which is something that as someone who's in the business, I love to see,
Yeah. So you began this when, and what was the impetus to start this?
So I began this business around, I would say, mid to late 2022 or towards the end of my junior year of high school. Quite literally, it was just the best way to put it is I was bored one day at work. And afterwards, me and my friend Henry, when we went down to Goodwill, and I was like, you know what? I seen like at that point on TikTok, I seen videos of people flipping shoes or flipping clothes for money. And I was like, well, that's a fascinating idea. I hate working like the food industry. I've always been an entrepreneur, always fascinated. So I went there, I bought a pair of James Hardens and I bought them for $20 and then brought them home, put them on eBay, and they never ended up selling. Like I actually ended up losing $20 on the pair of shoe. But it's just like something about buying that in that moment, like opened me up to the idea that like there is a bigger world here. And then eventually that led me down the path to where now I'm selling vintage clothing. I'm running an online store, a website. We have an in-person location also. And it's just slowly just expanded.
You need to tell me how old you are.
I'm 19 years old. So I'll be 20 in about 3 months.
So this puts you as a junior in college then, or?
Sophomore.
I'll
be
sophomore.
Yeah.
Coming, okay.
Junior credit-wise, sophomore.
Okay. Let's talk about credit-wise. You're
yeah,
junior.
Exactly.
You can do it in 3 years?
No. If I wanted to, I could do it in 3 years. My two options are either I'm going to graduate in 3 years or I'll graduate in 4 and just take 10, my minimum, the least amount of credit hours I have to. So I can basically just party a lot, work in the business a lot, and do my 4.0 with the bare minimum effort. So
I wish I could have gotten a 4.0 with a bare minimum effort. So.
Oh, last semester we doing a 4.0, but this semester we'll get a 3.8 to 4.0, in that range. So
marketing is the degree, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Let's talk about how you got started in this. I want you did a one item.
Yeah.
Then how did you begin to scale this then?
So I would say scaling it was one of the harder things to do. I mean, more or less is it kind of just, I guess I'll start at the beginning. I mean, it's one of those things. I started off by only selling shoes. I would buy shoes from Goodwill and other like used clothing places. I'd only buy shoes. I buy them, I clean them up. And I thought that I thought there's the only place there was money in. And then my friend James Leach, he had been interested in the vintage clothing world, which is like, that's like clothing from the 2000s. Imagine.
That's vintage?
That's
I got it. Okay. All right. Different perspective, guys.
Yeah. No. 2000s, that's, even to me, that's kind of crazy. Not everyone considers it vintage, but I do. It's considered more Y2K or 2000s, grunge. But then vintage is more 90s, 80s, 70s. And then before the 70s, people call it true vintage. They call it it's like old clothes. 70s is sometimes true vintage, but 80s and 90s is the main kind of range where people love the clothes. So my friend James Leach was into that. He was into 90s Levi's, 80s Levi's. He was into 80s sports t-shirts, 80s crew necks. 80s
so do we have the sourcing?
No. So basically there's
I mean, it's easy to sell one thing and make a ton of money on it. But then where do you get the other 20?
See, that's where, at least for me, is I got blessed. In Louisville, Kentucky, there is a Goodwill bins 10 minutes from my house, and there's another one, a 10-minute drive across the river.
So you can buy a bale?
Not in bale. So more or less, it's just like, the best way to put it is imagine it's like a big bin. I say like a 5 foot by 3 foot bin, 3 feet deep, and it's just full of clothes. And they and like at the bins I go to, they have about like 10 of those, and they rotate them every hour. And every single hour, they rotate new bins just full of clothes that people haven't seen yet. And when you go through those bins, it gets more complicated, more or less. People have, people at the bins call the bins two things. There's salvage, and then there's tags. Tags are bins that came directly from a Goodwill. They have like a Goodwill tag on it. They've been already pre-looked through. And then salvage is stuff that's not been looked through by anyone. It's stuff that people have donated and then sent straight to the bins. Those are the bins that we like, because that means that, like, for example,
does Goodwill have too much product?
They always do. Goodwill is, that's something you could talk about on a whole different episode if you like talk about
Okay.
goodwill.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
but the key is
Yeah.
you've got sourcing without having to go to a bunch of garage sales or and you don't have to drive across town or anything.
Exactly. And for me, that's a blessing. I mean, it's the greatest thing of all time. And so basically, when I first started, I would just go to the Goodwill bins for an hour or two a day, and it was addictive. It's almost like gambling. It's almost like playing roulette and you're spinning the wheel, because every single time they do a new rotation, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if there's going to be new clothes come up. You don't know if then the next bin you dig through is going to be a $300 t-shirt, $400 t-shirt. If you're going to find a pair of jeans from the 1920s are worth $100,000. You don't know what
That
the next
stuff
thing
is out there.
the stuff is out there. The bids I go to most likely doesn't happen, because one of the things now is vintage has gotten so popular
I know.
that the employees and also Goodwill as a self, which again, whole different episode. Goodwill as a self, they sell the stuff that they get on a website for. Allegedly, they're a nonprofit company, but their clothes are good for free. They're selling on their website for thousands of dollars and taking them away from the people who, us resellers, So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, as a nonprofit company, makes you question if it's actually nonprofit or not.
Well, but there's another 20 podcast on that.
Oh yeah,
by the
exactly.
way.
Yeah, exactly. What was nonprofit?
So you got your sourcing down.
Yeah.
Then you did you begin to market with a bricks and mortar in addition to your online stuff then, or how did you?
So I'd say the marketing kind of started with. So I'm on my second brand right now. My first brand I ever created was a brand called 502 Thrifts.
Right.
So 502 Thrifts was a brand. It was named after the area code of Louisville, Kentucky, 502, and we called ourselves Thrifts because I've always wanted to never be like kind of stuck into only the vintage world. I know that vintage is popular right now.
It is.
But I generally believe that the future of that, like that industry itself, is just used clothes as a whole, cool graphics, and that's comfortable. Like, and it just name brands. It doesn't matter what it is. I think Thrifts is more popular than vintage. We named 502 Thrifts.
I think you're right. I don't know how many people we hear saying, "Oh yeah, I bought this at a resale store, or
Exactly.
I went thrifting for it, or something." So, and it's what they're going to wear out that night.
That's how I see it. Exactly, yeah. And that's the thing. So it's like vintage will eventually drive. Eventually there'll be, like, obviously there'll be more clothes from the 90s, but the things people want in particular, they're going to slowly fade away. So it'll be a new thing. But basically, I started by marketing on Instagram. Instagram was our main way we marketed.
Right.
So we marketed on Instagram and a platform called Depop. Depop more or less does the marketing for you. The more you post, the higher quality your photos are, the more you use hashtags, the more you interact with the algorithm, the more it will boost your listings. So that was one way that we grew, virtually.
Now, did you back into this to see how the algorithm worked, or did you have a tutor on that lets you? Did you just figure it out?
I always say my tutor's time, like time and just failure,
Yeah.
posting things over and over again. And then also, if I always live by this, if you want to be great at something, get to study those who are great. So whenever I first started selling Depop, I would find accounts who were verified to have thousands of sales, and I would study what they do. I look at their descriptions, and I would look at their photos, and I compare it to other people who had the exact same thing. And even to today, I do the exact same thing. I compare them, I'm like, what did they do that I'm not doing that I can improve on?
Yeah.
And that's how we grew on Depop. And then with Instagram, we started posting photos of clothes, and eventually around Louisville, I started selling my school. My friend James, I brought him into the business. He started selling at his school. And then eventually in Louisville, we opened our first brick and mortar business inside a shopping center called Logan Street Mall, which was one of those experiences. You realize how difficult it is to actually run an in-person business. Have a staff fully.
You got to be there.
Oh, you have to be there, which was so difficult. And also sales there were just not that good. Some days we'd make $0, other days we make $200. It was just it fluctuated so much because it was very difficult. So then eventually we all moved away from that. And eventually I moved away from that current brand into my new brand now, Uni Vintage. With Uni Vintage, is the whole idea of that is that if you want retro or vintage clothing for your college, you come to us. Right now we're centered in Lexington, Kentucky, with an in-person shop, which again I could talk about that more. We have an in-person store in the basement of a record store, which it's the greatest deal of all time. I just sell clothes, and the record store owner, he runs everything. I just sell clothes with him, and it's amazing. It's great.
Do you give him a piece then?
Yeah, I give him a piece, and then also honestly, I pay rent, I help around the shop, do little things like that.
Yeah.
But it's just more or less just it turns out, if you're nice to a guy, you go door to door, you shop him eventually. He'll eventually, he gave me a chance, and guess what? That chance now turns into us doing numbers I never thought we'd ever do. And also making his store, which is a store previously students didn't even know about, is brought in a whole demographic of just people who have been in business with him for
So
years.
to pull through
Oh my gosh.
that he didn't even anticipate.
No, I didn't anticipate it at all either. I think for me, one of the moments I knew, we're all right, this is actually good, is we started with one rack in the basement,
Right.
and then I eventually moved over to having I think how many was it? I think we had 4 or 5, and there was one day I walked down, there was 20 people shopping at once, and I was just like, I had done little to no marketing, and for me, I was like, that was just a sign. I was like, there's a gap in the market here, and we're working on setting it right now. And like, and for me, I was like, that was a crazy experience. And then also like the first time I used to get checks from him, I remember one time I got checked for $1,000, so just 1,000 flat, and I was like, because it was gonna be 900, like it was like gonna be like 997, and he's like, I'll round it up $3. I remember seeing that check for $1,000. I was like, that is how much money I would make in a month and a half working my old restaurant, maybe 2 months. And I made that in, I think this was during Christmas time. It was like 2 days, and I was just like, whoa. I was mind boggled. I was like, it was a really real experience, you know?
You have learned from experience, and you learn from others' experience and lack of experience.
Well put.
Is there any time that you sat down and said, okay, this is my linear marketing plan? Where you've got like a bar graph or that kind of equivalent where you said, okay, I'm here. I need to do this simultaneous with this. Or was that it just been intuitive?
A lot has been intuitive, but more recently I've moved more into the numbers game. Like a lot recently moved more into the numbers game because doing everything intuitive works until it doesn't. There's a certain point where
you reach a threshold.
You reach a threshold where like, okay, like I'm like, we're doing this many sales, but also sales fell off a cliff, and like I'm like, how do I source properly? How do I know I'm spending the right amount of money? And like, so right now during the summer, it's been kind of great. I've been given a chance to look at it from a more numbers perspective, being like, all right, I spent this much money. This was a really, really bad purchase. This was a really, really great purchase. This sells really, really well in the shop. Well, this sells way better online. So then also learning, like, when it comes to marketing specifically, I've realized like now it's like, instead of numbers, it's more looking at like, what can I do to bring the most people? So for example, for us, we got a sandwich sign outside. We had a custom
This
artist.
is for bricks and mortar.
Bricks and mortar. Yeah, we have a sandwich sign outside of the shop, which was like commissioned by the local artist, like a student around campus, and she killed it. It is beautiful. And that sign alone has probably brought us in thousands of new customers. So thousands of new eyes to the business. Along with that though,
So bricks and mortar is working for you.
it is working well.
I mean,
yeah.
you're not, there's a lot of people, it just doesn't work. They have to drop back to online only.
Yeah. Which I think for me, the reason it works so well is because my overhead is just so low. It's not like I'm paying for employees, I'm paying rent specifically. I have such a low overhead that it allows me, like, for example, this summer, I'm sales at the shop or maybe $100 a week. But that's because I haven't restocked in 2 months because I'm focusing on online. But also I'm focusing on redoing the shop, right?
Just coasting.
Huh?
You're just coasting right
I'm just
now.
coasting right now. I'm coasting and I'm also planning. I'm planning for the next year. I'm like, my plan is I'm like, during the first month of college, we should be doing 400 to 500 sales a day. I want every single new student. If you are a new student at the University of Kentucky, I want you to know the name UniVintage.
Now, do you have to go through some traditional advertising to grab them, or do you know the social media they will access where you can damn near be guaranteed they'll see it?
See, that's the thing. That's where like I kind of got lucky in the aspect like I started off by for every college on Snapchat. Snapchat's probably the primary, like, I'd say, social media and aspect of like texting that every single college kid uses.
Yeah.
And for basically every single big college for Snapchat, they have a class of like 2028, class of 2027, class of 2026, class of 2029, and it's a story that people can post on. So what I did is I started posting on my class with like, hey, vintage clothing, we're open with the address, and then I would pay people in different classes to post on the store from me now. And I said that alone, I'm like, according to my shop owner, posting on Snapchat, having people post on Snapchat for me for their classes has probably generally brought in 85% of our
So
entire
what will they post if you pay somebody to post? What are you going to have them post?
At the beginning, it was just like text saying vintage clothing, UniVintage, like a photo like clothing in the background, 371 South Limestone Street. Come shop, open to the 7.
You have to be a member of that class to be a member of that Snapchat, then, right?
Exactly, yeah. So that's the thing. But there's
So buy your way
4,000
in.
people.
Why not?
That's the thing. So there's like 4,000 people, and like there's like 4,000 people per story, if not more. So I mean, like, and it's like it's one of those things where I'm like, well, I remember the first time I posted on it, and I was like, maybe we'll get like a little bit of traction. Came to the shop, sales went from $100 to like $300, and this is around December, Christmas time. Very different. Sales.
Yeah.
People are shopping, but it's just like, whoa. I just remember that I was like just like mind boggled. I was like, oh my God. So
This whole thing is sort of mind-boggling, and I mean, this isn't just dumb luck. You have come into some scenarios that are very, very positive for you, but you've been smart enough to recognize it. Now, when you jam up with customers, what about sourcing? Do you run low on sourcing? Do you ever run low on product then? What do you do if somebody shows up, if 5 people in a row show up and say, I want this, and I don't have that?
Yeah, so that's actually happened a lot, and that's like one of the main things we're trying to figure out right now. By we're, I mean like me. I'm like the sole owner of the vintage. No, I remember at a point where it was like when I first opened an in-person location. For the first time in my life, I was like, sales are so good that I don't have enough product. In some ways in my mind, I was like, I kind of want less people to come here because the greatest fear is when someone walks into your shop and that you have nothing. It's like slim. It's like bare none.
Boy, you're right. That is so true. We're going to have to wrap up pretty soon on your
Yeah.
business here. But before we do, if somebody thinks they've got a knack for marketing of one kind or another,
Yeah.
how are they going to find their niche? What would you suggest?
Generally, it's just like I would say if it's something that like you can at nighttime you can like think about and it's like you're passionate about it. The best way to put it is like I go to bed. Some of my favorite things in my life to think about are what I can do in my business. It just puts a smile on my face and it just makes me happy. So if you have like a niche or something like something you're passionate about, you're like you don't have to put thought into it. It just happens. Like you naturally just think, but even if it's like not marketing world, you naturally think like, okay, I love sports. All right, well then one sport in the sports world could you market and what business could you do?
Right.
And I would just generally just you'll if you don't stumble upon it now, you'll stumble upon it eventually. It just try. I've tried. Everyone always says you tried dozens of business before your first one that succeeds.
That's right.
This is my first one to succeed, and guess what? I'll probably have dozens more after this. Right now, I'm learning to become a DJ. I'm learning like all these new things because why not? As new businesses that could help me in the future, be bigger than my current one.
You just can't walk past an opportunity, can you?
Never can.
That's great. Wow. What a great conversation. Grayson Morris, thank you for your time today.
Our first year, Jim.
We'll do more.
This has been Jim Bratton Podcast, Business Edition. Contemporary business conversations. A Jim Bratton production. I'm Sierra Safel.